Now we move on to the plot of episode 185, where everything is, of course, perfectly calm. Well, not quite. Before watching, don't forget to leave a like, it really helps. Han Li returned from his mission, and in the war between Tianan and the Mulan tribe, he, as an early nascent soul cultivator, caused no small amount of trouble for mid-stage opponents thanks to his many magical treasures. At first, the enemy believed that such a cultivator was only strong because of a few strange abilities, and that once those were understood, victory would be easy. But in the blink of an eye, Han Li released 4 or 5 artifacts of considerable power. From the very beginning, his opponent only managed to summon a single defensive artifact, after which she was forced to defend continuously under Han Li's assault. This wounded the pride of a warrior highly respected among the Mulan shamans. Still, the enemy understood that, with so many defensive artifacts protecting Han Li, ordinary techniques and treasures would not be enough to break him, let alone destroy him. Then, when she saw Han Li spread the wings behind his back and vanish in flashes of lightning, the enemy gave a contemptuous snort and finally decided to sacrifice part of her power to deliver one fatal blow. But first, she had to prevent Han Li from using his lightning movement technique to close in on her. Having made up her mind, the woman in green, with a single thought, caused the white face floating above her head to drop down and dissolve into the crown of her head. At that same instant, accompanied by a peal of thunder and arcs of electricity, Han Li appeared 3 or 4 zhang away from the woman in green. With a slight sway, he instantly moved again, appearing directly before her, only 1 zhang away. His hand shot forward like lightning and landed silently on the yellow protective shield surrounding the woman. Judging by the shield's wood attribute, Han Li had an 8 in 10 chance of breaking it with a strike from the Qinlan ice flame. But just as it seemed his blow would reach its target, the woman in green still hung motionless in the air, not making the slightest attempt to dodge. Han Li's heart tightened with a sense of foreboding. At that very moment, the woman's body inside the shield suddenly lit up with a gentle milky white glow, and one after another, snow-white lotus petals bloomed around her. Han Li had only just broken through the yellow shield when one of the petals stopped his palm. The white light and blue flame collided, and in that same instant Han Li's hand shuddered, while his vision was flooded with blinding whiteness. It was as if the petal had only lightly brushed him. The movement seemed slow, yet avoiding it proved impossible. All he could do was helplessly watch as the petal struck him. Han Li cried out inwardly, and then the blow landed. A sharp pain burned through his chest, and he was flung backward. He was thrown 20 or 30 zhang before he barely managed to steady himself and stop, swaying in place. One hand pressed against his chest, his face frozen in shock as he stared at the woman. At some point, a gigantic lotus several zhang wide had bloomed beneath the feet of the woman in green, and pale petals slowly revolved around her body. She stood within it with a stony expression, staring coldly at Han Li. The attacks from the green bamboo cloud-swarm swords that followed were easily deflected by those petals. This lotus manifestation was far more fearsome than the previous lotus illusion. Han Li tasted sweetness in his mouth and involuntarily spat out a stream of blood. He gave a crooked smile inwardly. The damage was no joke. Pulling himself together, he slowly exhaled the stale air from his lungs and removed his hand from his chest. Looking down, he saw that the robe over his chest had been torn to shreds, revealing a gleaming 3-colored breastplate. The battle armor under his robe had been crushed inward with a deep dent, and several thumb-wide cracks had spread across the armor. Han Li drew in a sharp breath. The pain in his chest intensified. He raised his head grimly and looked at the woman in green. She had just glanced over his armor, and disappointment flashed across her face. Without a word, Han Li tore away the remains of his robe in one motion, fully revealing the majestic chitinous armor. Then his hand flared with blue light, and he ran his 5 fingers across the damaged part of the armor. Something incredible happened. The dents and cracks visibly healed, restoring themselves moment by moment. In less than a second, the armor returned to its original state, as though it had just been forged. The woman in green's expression trembled slightly, surprise flickering in her eyes, but she quickly returned to her usual icy look. Her desire to kill Han Li deepened by another degree. Without hesitation, she raised her white hand before her chest, spread her 5 fingers, and to the sound of a melodious incantation, a glowing object flew from her sleeve and settled into her palm. It was a bronze oil lamp, ancient, weathered, even blackened by time. The woman in green looked at it, and a trace of regret appeared on her face. Then she cast Han Li a fierce look, and cruelty flashed in her eyes. Seeing that expression, Han Li sensed danger. Though he had no idea what this ancient artifact was, he had never seen or heard of such a lamp before. Quickly considering his options, Han Li burst into blue light and transformed into a green rainbow that darted across the sky, gathering up all of his artifacts. Then the wings behind his back trembled, and with a thunderclap he vanished. In the next instant, he appeared beside a huge ice sculpture shaped like a bird. Without ceremony, he grabbed it with one hand and vanished again in the rumble of thunder. He reappeared at the edge of the dense fog in one direction and without hesitation plunged into the sea of mist. The woman in green opened her mouth, her face filled with complete astonishment. Ever since reaching the peak of her mastery, she had fought many formidable opponents of roughly equal power and had never once been defeated. But to see a high-level cultivator turn and flee so decisively without hesitation, that was something she had never witnessed before. Still, the moment she noticed that Han Li had taken the ice bird with him, she immediately came to her senses, burning with anger. With a short cry, she stepped onto the white lotus, lamp in hand, and rushed after him, vanishing into the fog. Within the sea of mist, green and silver lights flashed one after another without pause. Thunder and the howl of wind rose and fell. In only a moment, Han Li, having lured the woman in green, led her into an unfamiliar place. There, Han Li flashed with silver light and stopped. He lowered his eyes to the blue ice sculpture in his hand and let out a cold laugh. His palm suddenly sparked, and the ice sculpture shattered into pieces. The body of the snow ferret exploded into thousands of fragments together with the ice. The woman in green, who had just materialized out of the wind behind him, saw this, and her expression changed for a moment, but then she laughed coldly several times. She stepped down from the white lotus, and at once a fierce wind rose around it, blowing away all the surrounding fog. Han Li narrowed his eyes, fixing his opponent with a grim stare, and calmly asked whether this Taoist friend truly felt no regret over the destruction of her treasure, or was she simply certain that Han Li's actions could not have harmed this artifact. As he spoke, he casually glanced at the bluish ice fragments scattered in the air, which strangely did not fall. "What do you think?" the woman in green replied indifferently. She pointed a finger toward Han Li, and the ice fragments near him suddenly all sparkled at once. Countless tiny white points of light poured out of them. Han Li was startled, but immediately waved his hand, sending out a stream of bluish radiance that swept over those points. A soft pop sounded. The points of light detached from the ice and one by one turned into milky white radiance. All of that radiance flew toward the woman. The blue glow swept through and caught nothing. Han Li had failed, and his face darkened. He abandoned the attempt and merely watched coldly as the radiance merged into one in front of the woman and in an instant condensed into a white sphere the size of a head. The woman in green calmly struck it with a spell. The white sphere flared brilliantly, a cry rang out from inside, and then it stretched and regained its former shape. The bloody eagle appeared once more before Han Li's eyes. Han Li frowned as he looked at the bird. It appeared weak and exhausted. That made him think. Everything pointed to the fact that the strike against the artifact spirit had not been without effect. The eagle was not immortal, and if it were destroyed a few more times, that would be enough to scatter it forever. Seeing that the eagle was weak, the woman made a gesture without another word. The snowy eagle spread both wings and shot into the sky, then turned over in the air and transformed into a white silk ribbon that drifted down over its mistress and disappeared from sight. "You suddenly stopped running and then tried to provoke me by destroying the spirit of my artifact. That means you've hidden some kind of trump card here," the woman said, holding the lamp in one hand and adjusting her hair with the other, looking at him coldly. Han Li was slightly surprised, but after a brief thought, he answered honestly, "You know that, and yet you still came. That means you're confident in your treasures. Would you care to tell me the origin of that lamp? Han Li has never heard of such an ancient artifact before." As he said this, he did not take his eyes off the woman's face. "Better not die ignorant," she said coldly. The woman opened her mouth, and a puff of smoky flame flew out, landing directly on the bronze lamp in her hand. A faint flame slowly ignited on the wick. Han Li sighed, and with a calm expression, flicked both sleeves. There was already something in each hand. He gave the woman opposite him a meaningful look. Then he threw one of the artifacts high into the sky and swiftly formed a spell toward it. A low murmur sounded. The artifact flared and burst apart. From it, a mass of green mist was woven, spreading across the sky for dozens of zhang, and in the next moment, caught by a whirlwind, it took the shape of a green mist dragon over 10 zhang long, and rushed toward the woman. Han Li threw the second item beneath his feet. It instantly transformed into white mist and seeped into the earth, vanishing without a trace. At once, the surrounding sea of mist stirred, and from it burst countless threads of blue and red light that crashed down upon the woman. Han Li himself swept his sleeve wide, and a small silver bell rapidly expanded in the wind, becoming enormous and emitting a loud hum. The bell released silver sound waves and, at Han Li's command, flew straight above the head of the woman in green. Since he could not get close to her, let the bell's sound strike invisibly. That still might work. Yet Han Li's true trump card was not that at all. Against the lotus with its mysterious petals and the incomprehensible bronze lamp, his real lethal weapon was Yin Yue, who had already slipped underground in advance using an earth-gliding technique. At this moment, Yin Yue had already spread the Zichengdu net directly beneath the woman's feet, waiting for a single instant of carelessness to deliver a fatal blow. The woman in green had no idea there was an ambush beneath her. She seemed not to notice any of the restrictions and attacks Han Li had laid out. She merely gazed absent-mindedly at the faint bluish flame trembling in the lamp, and a mysterious cold smile lingered on her lips. Unhurriedly, she raised her white hand and with two jade-like fingers skillfully plucked the flame from the wick. The tiny pea-sized flame hung between her fingers. She held it gracefully. Meanwhile, the mist dragon was descending from the sky. Blue and red threads attacked from all sides, and waves of silver sound almost reached her all at once. But the woman showed not the slightest concern. With one motion of her jade-like finger, she pointed downward. The white lotus beneath her burst with white light and began spinning rapidly. The pale petals began to close, and in the blink of an eye, wrapped the woman in an impenetrable cocoon. The green mist dragon from the restriction arrived first, and without hesitation opened its mouth, spitting out a green mist sphere. It struck the white curtain of light, and a lotus petal casually swept it aside, causing it to dissipate without a trace. The blue and red threads followed after, but they too were stopped outside. Only the sound waves seemed not to be blocked by the white petals. They passed directly inside. How effective they were was impossible to tell. Seeing this, Han Li formed a spell without hesitation. The blue and red threads stopped trying to force their way through and instead crossed and intertwined, forming nets one after another, binding the lotus from the outside. At the same time, they wrapped it in several layers of misty covering. The mist dragon also reared up and transformed into a broad wave of green mist, swallowing both the lotus and the threads. The silver bell hovered directly above the white lotus, and under Han Li's full control, the sound waves intensified threefold, piercing through the restrictions one after another and reaching the woman inside. For a moment, it seemed that the woman in green was trapped inside the lotus, but Han Li did not rejoice. On the contrary, his brows furrowed. His concern was justified. The white lotus, compressed to the size of a single zhang, suddenly, without any warning, bloomed open again. The white petals, like sharp blades, spun several times and shredded the surrounding green mist and light threads to pieces. A dark shadow covered Han Li's face. The woman in green stood calmly and upright in the center of the white lotus, without the slightest emotion on her face. In one hand she held the bronze lamp, in the other, that same modest bluish flame. She cast Han Li a cold glance, and her gaze slid toward the silver bell humming above her head. Silver waves washed over her like a dome. Her beautiful eyes flashed coldly. Suddenly the woman raised her hand and brought the bluish flame to her lips, then blew lightly. A soft pop sounded. The flame barely trembled, and in the same instant vanished from her palm. In the very next moment, the silver bell in the sky was pierced by a sphere of blue light that had appeared from nowhere. The The woman began chanting a spell, and nameless bluish flame spread across the surface of the bell. The bell gave a mournful cry, flared with dazzling silver light, trying to resist for even a moment, but in vain. Within seconds, it melted in the blue flame, turned into silver-blue radiance, and dispersed without a trace. Seeing the destruction of that artifact, Han Li turned slightly pale. The woman in green had already reached as if by habit toward the lamp and removed another blue flame, her eyes gleaming darkly at Han Li. Han Li felt a chill in his heart. Without thinking for even a second, he spread his wind and thunder wings. Thunder roared, and he vanished from where he stood. The woman followed him with her eyes without much concern and calmly brought the flame to her lips, preparing to exhale spiritual power. But at that moment, purple light flashed beneath her feet, and a huge violet net more than 10 zhang across suddenly burst out of the ground from below. As the woman froze in bewilderment, a light female laugh rang out, and the Zicheng Dou net instantly covered her completely. Since this Taoist friend likes playing with fire so much, why not taste the true Yuyang fire of my Zicheng Dou net? From beneath the earth, following the net, there appeared in yellow radiance a beautiful young woman, Yin Yue. She was laughing, but her hands moved without delay. With a wave, a spell struck the net. The net ignited with a strange bluish-white flame, and then through its mesh flowed fire serpents of the same colors, which furiously lunged at the woman inside the lotus. The bluish-white flame instantly engulfed both the lotus and the net. At once, Han Li materialized nearby, more than 10 zhang away from the woman. Seeing what was happening, he was overjoyed and immediately swept both sleeves. 72 green bamboo clouds' warm swords shot into the sky, and after them followed a spell. The swords let out a dragon-like roar high above, gathered behind his back, and merged into one. Within bluish radiance, they turned into a gigantic sword, 6 or 7 zhang long. The moment Han Li focused his mind, thunder rang out, and thick golden arcs of electricity danced across the sword's surface, turning it into a thunderblade. But Han Li still was not satisfied. He drew a deep breath and exhaled a thin stream of pale blue icy flame, which struck directly into the giant sword. Now, in addition to the terrifying electric arcs, the sword's surface also danced with a barely visible pale blue flame. A cold fire flashed in Han Li's eyes. He pointed at the sword. It trembled, transformed into a blue rainbow, and shot toward the white lotus within the net. But at last the woman in green came fully to her senses. In fury, she hurled the blue flame above her head. The moment it left her hand, it burst with dazzling blue light, began spinning in a vortex over her head, and something incredible happened. The bluish-white flame raging outside the lotus, upon seeing the little flame, instantly transformed into threads, and, like rivers flowing into the sea, rushed into it. In the blink of an eye, the true Yuyang fire of the Zicheng Dou net was completely absorbed. The little flame still floated peacefully in the air, only its blue light had noticeably brightened. The woman in green calmly pointed at the flame. It swayed and slowly drifted toward Yin Yue. Yin Yue's face changed sharply. Without time to think, she pointed at the Zicheng Dou net. The entire net flared at once, and dense threads rose to shield her. At the same time, she flipped her palm, and a basket-like artifact appeared in her hand. At that moment, the blue giant sword, roaring with thunder, reached the woman and at the command of Han Li's spell came crashing down. Yin Yue, acting in unison with her ally, had just transformed the basket into white mist to protect herself, and immediately formed another spell, and a wide opening appeared in the violet net above the lotus. The sword, carrying golden arcs and blue flame, shot through it toward the white lotus below. The strike was truly devastating. The woman in green's expression shifted slightly. For the first time, seriousness appeared on her face. After hesitating for a moment, she left Yin Yue alone and poured all of her spiritual power through the soles of her feet into the white lotus. The already powerful lotus instantly grew fourfold, petal after petal stretching upward to form the densest possible curtain of light. At the same time, she pointed toward the little flame that had flown away. It immediately returned above her head. Then the woman raised the bronze lamp high and gave it a slight shake. Within the bluish shimmer, two more identical flames appeared and lined up beside the first above her head, then instantly merged into one, forming a blue fireball the size of a human head. At last, the giant sword descended upon the curtain of lotus petals. A deafening crash rang out, lightning exploded, white light flared, and golden arcs and blue flame intertwined. The dozens of lotus petals were truly wondrous, but the lightning-drawing force and pale blue icy flame were no ordinary powers either. Either one by itself might not have been enough to overcome the lotus barrier, but together, on the surface of the giant sword, and further strengthened by the power of the 72 green bamboo swords, the result was decisive. The petal barrier bravely endured for one more moment and then still shattered, turning into stardust. Nothing remained to block the giant sword, and it plunged downward. But then a blue fireball slowly floated up to meet it. A grim light flashed in Han Li's eyes. Despite some apprehension toward the enemy's wondrous artifact, he wanted to see which was stronger, the pale blue icy flame or the lamp's fire. The giant sword continued its descent without hesitation. This time, the collision was soundless. The golden arcs and icy flame were absorbed by the blue fire in a single instant. Then the entire giant sword vanished into the flame as well. The green bamboo cloud swarm sword was Han Li's bonded weapon, and thus he felt everything with exceptional sharpness. The instant the blue flame completely engulfed the sword, Han Li's heart trembled. An unbearable heat suddenly rose from the depths of his being, rapidly spreading through his whole body. His blood seemed to boil. In horror, Han Li, without a second's thought, formed a spell at lightning speed, directing it toward the sword. The sword let out a long hum, lit up with blue light, and split into dozens of small blue blades, which flew off in different directions. He had hoped this would help them break free from the grip of the lamp's strange flame. But the moment Han Li looked closely, his face turned pale. Each of the flying swords was also wrapped in flame, and each was once again trapped. Han Li's face turned ashen. The malaise in his body intensified, and cold sweat began breaking out all over him. Clenching his teeth in agitation, he began forming spells with the speed of a spinning wheel, while his spiritual sense split into dozens of threads, controlling each sword instantly. The sword shot upward and twisted into vortices, trying by every means to shake off the flames. He himself had seen the silver bell burn to nothing, and he could not allow the destruction of his bonded weapon. If that happened, both his original spiritual power and his spirit root would suffer grievous damage. Meanwhile, the lotus that had just been destroyed grew once again from the disc-like base beneath the feet of the woman in green and again enclosed her in its embrace. The woman coldly watched as Han Li's swords were targeted by a single flame and now darted chaotically across the sky. A mocking smile slid across her lips. There was no need to hurry with an attack. All she had to do was wait until the enemy's bonded weapon was destroyed, and his strength fell. But soon the smile froze on her lips. An expression of astonishment appeared in her eyes. The bronze lamp in her hand was far from an ordinary artifact. Strictly speaking, it did not even truly belong to her. It was one of the two greatest ancestral treasures of the entire Mulan tribe. The woman surnamed Le kept it because she was a high-level cultivator and the foremost female shaman of the Mulan tribe. But even more importantly, she held a special status, almost equal to that of the heavenly maiden among the Tuowu people, and was surrounded by the respect of the high shamans, who did not dare show the slightest carelessness toward her. She bore the title of one of the three great shamans of the Mulan tribe. Ever since the lamp came into her possession, due to special circumstances and restrictions inherent to the artifact itself, the number of times she could use it was limited, so she cherished it and resorted to it only rarely. If the number of uses were exceeded, the lamp would have to be returned immediately and await the next worthy keeper. This alone showed how carefully the Mulan tribe treated the treasure. Still, the bronze lamp's greatest value was not its combat use at all. It served another purpose, one especially important to the entire Mulan tribe without exception. Of course, in battle, the lamp was also invincible. Every one of its previous keepers had used it to strike down mighty enemies and melt down countless treasures. Any artifact, ancient or ordinary, once caught by the lamp's blue flame, could not resist it for even an instant. Wooden artifacts were especially vulnerable. They turned to nothing in a moment. But Han Li's swords, clearly part of a single set and of wood nature, had long been wrapped in the lamp's flame, and yet there was still not the slightest sign of burning. How could the woman not be astonished? And at that very moment of her shock, purple light suddenly flashed above her head, and without the slightest warning, the purple net emerged again. The woman surnamed Le shuddered and looked around. Yin Yue had seized the moment and activated the restriction of the Zicheng Dao net, closing once more the opening that had previously been left. Then Yin Yue swayed her slender body slightly, parted her red lips, and from her mouth poured a pink, fragrant mist, which instantly engulfed the white lotus. The woman in green snorted coldly, glanced at the bronze lamp in her hand, and after a brief hesitation decided not to use it. With her other hand, she drew out a pale yellow jade talisman. Just as she was about to activate it in order to teach Yin Yue a lesson, the pink mist suddenly began to move, and from it emerged countless phantom youths and beauties, embracing each other in passionate caresses. At first, the woman in green was stunned. Then she flushed to the roots of her hair. "Wretch, you seek death!" Her face darkened with rage. The jade talisman in her hand burst with yellow light, and a wave of yellow radiance tore the pink mist to shreds without a trace. But where Yin Yue had stood, there was no longer anyone there. The woman surnamed Le gave a cold laugh and was just about to use her spiritual sense to locate her. But suddenly, as if remembering something, her expression changed, and she hurriedly cast a glance toward Han Li. In those few moments of distraction, Han Li had already regathered all the scattered swords into a single giant blade and recalled it to his side. He stood with a grim face, not taking his eyes off his opponent. When she saw that the sword still had not been melted down, the woman surnamed Le was inwardly horrified and immediately made her decision. Relying on the bronze lamp in her hand, she prepared to sacrifice another chance to use it and melt Han Li himself, when suddenly he sharply brought both hands together before his chest. One palm glowed with white frosty light, while blue fire danced on the other. Then he opened his mouth, and a stream of pure energy wrapped around both palms. A soft pop sounded. Between his palms appeared a purple flame the size of a chicken egg. Han Li pointed a finger at it, and with a faint crackling sound, the flame transformed into a living purple swallow. The bird spread its wings and darted toward the giant sword, which was still wrapped in blue flame. After a quiet pop, something unheard of happened. Purple and blue flames ignited simultaneously on the surface of the sword, and intertwining began to fiercely devour one another. Neither could gain the upper hand. Han Li frowned, his face darker than a storm cloud. The woman surnamed Le stared with her mouth open. What kind of purple fire was this that it did not fear the flame of her ancient lamp? Had she not seen it with her own eyes? She never would have believed it. But she quickly recovered, and her desire to kill Han Li increased by another 3 degrees. Thank you for your support. If you enjoyed the episode, subscribe. And if you made it this far, then it seems there's no turning back now. See you next week.